In 1985, Stephen C. Morgan became the 17th president of the University of La Verne. He's served longer than any other president in the history of the university. During the Morgan years, the university has experienced unprecedented growth and change. The Morgan family has a long history with La Verne.
Grace Heilman Miller came to Lordsburg at the turn of the century with W.C. Hannawalt when he reopened Lordsburg College. And she earned her degree from the university, what was in Lordsburg College, in 1914. My mother graduated in 1936, and then I came along in the 60s as a third generation.
Steve grew up in Covina, the younger of two brothers.
Well, Steve and I had very different interests as youngsters. He got all the brains and the green thumb in the family, and I was more athletically inclined.
My interest was in flowers and electronics and building and doing mechanical kinds of things.
When it came time for college, Steve wanted to follow in the footsteps of his brother Tom, who had graduated from Santa Barbara. It wasn't the best fit.
He went there for one semester. He came home every weekend. And he said, I don't like it up here. I don't want to be a little fish in a big pond. I want to be a big fish in a little pond.
Steve transferred to La Verne and made quite an impact.
Steve was an excellent student, and he got straight A's throughout all the classes he took from me.
Some of Steve's best memories of his La Verne College student days took place outside the classroom.
Women were locked in the residence hall at 10 p.m. during the week and midnight on the weekend. They were convinced that if we locked women into the residence halls, the men would behave themselves after hours. Anne lived in Studebaker Hannawalt, and she was locked in at 10 o'clock. I gathered with the guys, and we went to In and Out, and our evenings began.
But Steve Morgan showed his leadership skills early on.
Steve was elected as the president of our student body at La Verne. And I recognized his leadership quality during the time he was the president of the student body.
Harold Fosnot was president of La Verne College when Steve was a student. Dr. Fosnot had a big impact on Steve.
And I used to watch Harold and think, wow, what a great public speaker he is. And wouldn't he have an interesting job? He gets to be with the students, he goes outside and raises money, he works with faculty. I think that's when I first started thinking being a college president would be a very interesting profession.
Fosnot recognized Steve's potential, and on graduation, gave Steve a job working in the college's development office. While working for the university, Steve noticed a cute co-ed, Anne McMurray. Anne McMurray grew up in Fresno. Her dad owned a local hardware business. Anne's brother Lou had attended La Verne. This was the one college Anne applied to.
So I came to the University of La Verne basically because it was a Brethren college. It was familiar to me. And my brother was here and was having a wonderful experience and played football and really enjoyed his time here.
Anne reflects on first meeting Steve.
I was sitting in the cafeteria and I was reading the school newspaper, the Campus Times, and he was sitting at another table with some friends, unbeknownst to me. And he said, hey, that Anne McMurray's kind of cute.
I said, you know, I'd like to meet her. And they said, we'll give you $5 if you just go introduce yourself to her.
We went to this school dance together, and both of us had an absolutely miserable time.
We had our first date, and both swore that we would never see each other again. Well, it was a really miserable evening.
It was just awful.
And we just didn't have a very good time, but she was still beautiful, so I wasn't going to give up.
Eventually, things worked out. Anne became a school teacher and taught elementary school for 14 years. Over the next 8 years, Steve served in a variety of positions at La Verne. During this time, Steve pursued a master's degree at USC. At La Verne, Steve served in a number of capacities under President Leland Newcomer.
So I worked with Lee Newcomer for the 7 years that he was president in a variety of roles. And I often said to Lee, you were a great mentor. I learned so much from you, and part of what I learned from you was how not to do things. But we laughed about it. Lee Newcomer was the most visionary person I've ever worked with. He really could look out into the future, and he could take an organization toward that future. So he did change things at Laverne.
Eventually, Steve earned his EDD from the University of Northern Colorado and took a job as executive director for the Independent Colleges of Northern California in San Francisco. When the presidency of the University of Laverne became vacant, Steve applied for his dream job at his alma mater.
You know, I think maybe I was too young to realize what I was biting off when I came to Laverne. I thought I wanted to be a college president. I thought I had good experience. I knew Laverne very well, and I faked my way through a lot of opportunities those first few years at Laverne.
Better than a good choice. I thought it was a great choice. I've been actively involved with the university as a former student and as mayor. So it was just the perfect choice from my point of view.
He's always been such a good off-the-cuff speaker in front of groups of people. I was always proud. After he would speak, I would think, yeah, he's a college president.
Today you are being inaugurated as the 17th president of the University of Laverne. We note with interest that you are the 5th president to be an alumnus. I charge you to faithfully carry out the duties and responsibilities of the offices of president as entrusted to you this first day of November, 1985.
During their early days back at Laverne, Ann wore many hats, providing leadership for the campus beautification effort, the renovation of Miller Hall, and the Landis Academic Center, among others.
Ann helped a great deal and spent a great deal of time on campus. She undertook the renovation of the building. She was supervising. The landscaping was all supervised by her. And she's been just a wonderful First Lady.
Over the next 26 years, Steve and Ann shared a strong bond at the helm of the University of Laverne.
I have really been blessed to have Ann as my partner at the University of Laverne, because when you take a job such as a presidency, it is all-consuming. It's your social life, it's your professional life. I would not have been nearly as successful at Laverne as I have been without Ann as my partner and her willingness to be a full partner in the process.
During the Morgan era, a number of buildings have been renovated and constructed, starting with the Hanawalt Fitness Center in 1987, the first new building on campus in 14 years.
I think when we go back, and they're going to call this the Morgan years, it's a quarter of a century. I mean, you know, you're going to look at Steve as a builder, not only of brick and mortar. I mean, he's been involved with the Oaks, the Barclay renovation.
But the building didn't stop there. The renovation of Miller Hall and Ortmeyer Stadium was followed by the renovation of the Wilson Library and the building of the Landis Academic Center, which was then the largest construction project in the history of the university. Other additions included the construction of the College of Law in Ontario, the renovation of the Arts and Communications Building, and the AAIC, now Leo Hall, and the creation of the Sarah and Michael Abraham Campus Center. But new buildings are not what matter most to Steve.
And I have a real missionary passion for the students we serve. We are serving the right students. They're going to be leaders in their communities and in their organizations. I think Laverne provides a fine educational opportunity for exactly those kinds of people, and have loved every minute of contact I've had with our students. Laverne is a much healthier institution than it was 25 years ago. And that's not just because of me, it's because I think we all work together to create some goals and visions, and we've all moved together toward those. And it's raised Laverne to a higher level of reputation. I'm proud of that, but I don't take credit for that, except that I hope I played some role in our moving together toward those goals.
Steve and Ann have been very involved in the community outside of the university.
Wherever you go, there Steve is. He's representing the university. He is the face of the university, and what a great face he's been for the university. Everybody knows who Steve is and who Ann is.
And I think one of the ways to help promote an organization is for the people of that organization to get involved in the community. I've had an opportunity to be involved in community organizations, and I have felt that helps spread the word and the reputation about the University of La Verne.
Over the years, Steve served in leadership roles on the boards of a number of local nonprofit organizations, including Pomona Valley Hospital, the LA County Fair, McKinley Children's Center, and the Leroy Haynes Center. The relationship between the City of La Verne and the university has produced a number of collaborations.
My tenure at La Verne as president happens to coincide largely with the tenure of John Blicken's staff as the mayor. John is a graduate of the University of La Verne.
I always felt like when Steve and I were working together, you knew exactly where you stood. Honesty and openness were high on the list.
So we've jointly developed our bookstores. Later we acquired the building where the bank used to be, and that became our bookstore.
We worked on, the literacy center was one.
We also have the aquatic park where we have our athletic facilities. We use those jointly. That's been a very positive relationship. We're right there in Old Town together. And I think the Monero Square represents the kind of partnership we have where you kind of walk off the campus into the community, which was jointly developed by the city and by the university.
With all of their activities, the Morgans still place their greatest emphasis on their family.
They cherish the time with their grandchildren, and we'll get down on the floor and play tricks with Charlie and, listen to Mackay's silly jokes and laugh out loud. And
when Kesley transferred to the University of La Verne, she became the fourth generation of the Millers and Morgans to attend and graduate from La Verne.
Being a fourth generation graduate from La Verne is an amazing feeling. To know that a foundation was laid there by my great-grandmother, followed by my grandmother, followed by both of my parents, and then for me to follow in those same footsteps.
When her daughter Kesley was 16, Ann Morgan decided it was time to take on a new challenge.
And then I did a lot of work supporting Steve in his work. And at some point I decided that that was enough of that, and I kind of wanted to go back to my own career, but I did not want to go back to teaching. I had always had an interest in therapy, in counseling.
After Ann completed her master's in marriage and family therapy at La Verne, she earned her doctorate from the California School of Professional Psychology and opened up a private practice.
My practice started to grow, and then it started to grow some more, and then it started to grow some more, and now I am very full-time in my practice, and I'm enjoying the work very much, and I squeeze in university stuff as I'm able.
With their hectic schedules, the Morgans still manage to find time to not only spend time with their family, but to engage in a variety of passions.
I've long had an interest in growing things, mostly flowers. I enjoy gardening. I find that a great outlet. That's how I recharge my batteries. I've given some of my best speeches to my roses, and I've told them what I think about some people at certain times. So it's been very cathartic for me. I've been interested in orchids since I was a kid. So I've had this long-term interest in growing orchids, and I have a hothouse and a shade house and have enjoyed that.
We always had birds in our backyard when we were in Fresno. That interest has always stayed with me, and now I have 2 bird feeding stations. I have 5 seed feeders and 2 or 3 hummingbird feeders.
And I also collect wine. I enjoy good wine, and Ann and I have established a collection over the years. And we both like to travel. We have a long list of places we would like to go after my retirement, starting with another safari to Africa that we're looking forward to.
In February 2010, Steve announced his plan to retire as the president of the University of La Verne, effective in the summer of 2011. There's still a lot more to accomplish. The renovation of the newly named Ann and Steve Morgan Auditorium is scheduled to be dedicated in spring of 2011, making it into a showplace for music and performance events on campus. At the insistence of a group of donors, the hall is being named in honor of Ann and Steve. Plans are also underway to construct new state-of-the-art student housing. Despite living much of their lives in the spotlight, there's a lot people don't know about Ann and Steve.
Steve has a wicked sense of humor, and most people don't get to see that. And he's really fun to work with. It's not just about work. He's really very funny, and a lot of people don't know that.
Is it true that your father never takes off his suit? Okay. And they truly believed that he got up in the morning and he put his suit on and he did not take it off until bed. And I think a lot of them thought that he actually slept in it. And they said, does he own any other clothes?
Steve and Ann returned to Laverne in 1985. They've been here for 26 years, making them the longest-served first family in Laverne's history.
It was never my intention to stay as long at Laverne as I have. I thought I would stay for about a decade and then move on to some other institution. I think what keeps people at Laverne is the opportunity to make a difference. It is an embraceable kind of institution, and whether you're a faculty member or a staff member or the president, you feel like you're making an impact on lives.
What will the legacy of Ann and Steve Morgan be at Laverne?
If I was going to say three things that would be significant, I would say the financial turnaround of the institution. I think certainly the new campus center is something that is always going to be one of the legacies that Steve has left with us. And the Steve and Ann Morgan contribution as something that brought class to the institution.
For all of their contributions to the university and for their dedication to community service, Steve and Ann Morgan are outstanding examples of Laverne graduates who live out the university's mission statement. In honor of their accomplishments, this year's recipients of the University of Laverne Alumni of the Year Award are Ann and Steve Morgan.